Kiyoya was a broke loser accountant who dreamed of being a game developer. However, his life takes a turn when he's sent to the past to assist his dream art college to fulfill his dreams. But when he discovers that he will be sharing dorms with his favorite artist, he decides to start clapping her instead. But before all this, Kiyoya wastes his adult lifetime going through his favorite artist mangas, all the while hoping he'd magically land a job in gaming or the arts. As the days passed, he thought about how 10 years ago, he was faced with the decision to choose between business or art school. Although he wanted to be a game developer, he ended up choosing business school because he thought he wasn't good enough, and wonders what would have happened had he chosen the art college. He slowly drifts off to sleep with troubled dreams of the past, and the next day he wakes up to his sister's voice, only to notice that she suddenly looks much younger. To his shock, she congratulates him on getting into the art college, while he stares at her in disbelief, wondering what the hell is she even talking about. He looks around and realizes that his room was looking exactly like it did a decade ago. He can't believe his eyes and checks the calendar only to see a date from 10 years ago. He quickly comes to terms with what has happened to him, and takes it as a blessing from God while he decides to take this opportunity to change his life and chooses to attend the art school this time instead of business school. Later that day, he shifts to his new room and settles down thinking about all the people he admires in the industry, as Akishima Shino, his favorite artist. Since he is the same age as his favorite creators, they should be somewhere around the school, wishing this could be the chance for him to work with them. The next morning, he wakes up to find a girl sleeping next to him. Startled, he jumps back, waking her in the process. He is startled for how heavy looks the plot she's carrying, and wonder how this 10 out of 10 baddie appear in his room. Without saying much, she casually grabs his milk and chugs it down like she hasn't had a drink in days. She suddenly slips and falls on Kiyoya. At that moment, her other roommates open the door and find a compromising scene, and he soon learns that she is Shino, his new housemate. At breakfast, they're joined by the other two housemates, Nanako and Roku. As they eat together, the group chats about college life and agrees on how to divide household chores. Once done, they rush to campus, only to find that the orientation has already begun. Kiyoya quickly finds a seat beside a guy named Hikawa, who strikes up a conversation about sports. Their chat is interrupted when the host introduces Kana, a fierce red-haired woman, and the associate professor. Later during class, Kiyoya notices a familiar red-haired girl accidentally drop her ID. He picks it up and hands it back to her, and the moment he sees her face recognition hits him. He remembers how one day while returning home, he sees a red-haired girl looking down from a bridge. Like every white knight simp, he decides to help her. Later on, they sit and have drinks together, while Kiyoya apologizes for thinking she was going to end herself, when she introduces herself as Kawase, the head of a gaming company, and is looking to hire someone new. He couldn't have been happier hearing this, and immediately volunteers to work as an intern. The next day, he meets her at her office for a formal introduction and is immediately sent off to work. However, even after working hard and being appreciated by everyone, the project he was involved in didn't go well, and the company had to shut down due to this, firing Kiyoya in the process. Back in the past, he notices that she is the same woman who, 10 years from now, becomes his boss at the gaming company. His heart races. If she's here, then the members of Platinum Era, the group of legendary creators he idolizes, must also be attending this college. For the first time in his life, he feels truly hopeful, as this is his chance to learn alongside the very people he once admired from afar. 2 weeks have gone by with Kiyoya buried under boring lectures and long hours in the filming studio, working alongside seniors who took everything either too seriously or not seriously enough. During class, while everyone pays attention, this loser constantly turns back to ogle the girls and wonder what they are up to. Everyone, except Kawase, seemed completely unbothered, and he couldn't help but admire her for being the only one actually trying in this so-called industry. Suddenly, the teacher turns back and starts firing off questions, and right on cue, Kawase raises her hand to answer. He stares at her in disbelief as she answers perfectly, and then redirects the remaining question to Roku, who is sleeping soundly. The teacher, fascinated with this, urges Roku to answer, who is probably dreaming of tacos, and yet despite not paying attention to a single thing, he gets up and answers the question correctly just by taking a glance at the blackboard. The class is stunned, and it's now painfully obvious that the top spot is going to be a deathmatch between Kawase and Raku. After class, Koya and the crew gather to unpack what just happened. Nanako playfully shoves Raku, impressed with his performance earlier, but he brushes it off like it's nothing. Meanwhile, Koya sits there wondering why. Despite having 10 years of experience in the field, he can't help but feel like a fraud with a camera. He becomes painfully aware that experience alone doesn't mean much if it isn't paired with talent or knowledge. While he's lost in this mental funeral, Shino stares at him like a creep, causing him to nearly drop his coffee. Just then, Hikawa arrives, dressed in what seems to be like some weird anime character costume. Apparently, it's the required outfit for some club called ninjutsu, and he encourages them to check out various clubs as well. As they roam around campus, two girls suddenly wave at them from a balcony, calling out in sing-song voices if they're freshers. Before they know it, they're swept away to a chaotic welcome party organized for the newbies. At some point in the evening, Shino dozes off against Kiyoya, and rather than waking her up, he decides to carry her home because why not? She wakes up halfway through the walk though, flustered beyond reason, but still clings to him like a baby koala. As they walk under the dim streetlights, he quietly admits how useless he feels, especially after seeing Roku answer effortlessly in class. She tells him not to be silly and that he has plenty of talents, just in a different department like cooking, cleaning, laundry, etc. Basically all skills required for a stay-at-home dad. Despite the roast, this still cheers him up and the two happily get back home to find that no one else is there. Shino yawns and tells him she's going to bed, but something about her energy feels off. Curious, he follows her like a total creep, and peeking through the slightly open door, he's stunned to see her drawing the cover of his favorite manga, realizing that she is his favorite artist. The next day, Shino picks a fight with Roku for eating her food without asking, and as a lame apology, he offers her another packet of instant noodles like it's some rare treasure. She refuses and demands that she only wants the same brand, same flavor she had. Kyoya, emotionally checked out of the drama, slowly sips his coffee quietly, wondering if this is what college life is going to be like. Nanako storms in with holier-than-thou attitude and scolds Roku for eating someone else's food without permission, and lectures him on decency, which is rich coming from her since she is the one who is indecent now. When Kyoya points that out, immediately shrieks in embarrassment and bolts to her room, but not before shoving him to the side. Later that day in class, Kana teaches them about the core elements of filmmaking and then asks the students to form a team of 4 and create a 3-minute short video. After class, Roku and Kyoya casually discuss this over a baseball game in the yard, ultimately deciding to team up with Shino and Nanako. After all, they already live under the same roof. That evening, when Kyoya gets to his part-time job at a convenience store, he spots Nanako also working there, casually scanning snacks like a pro. She greets him and mentions that the store owner gave them both weird looks for writing the same address on their applications. As they stock the shelves, he asks her why she joined this college, and she shrugs, saying she had no real reason, just got bored of her old place and felt like exploring something new. The next day, Kyoya meets with Kana again and hands her a sheet detailing their team progress, promising to send the script soon. She tells him that good stories often come from mundane places, and asks if anything interesting has happened to him lately. Like the absolute degenerate he is, his brain instantly flashes to the accidental peep show Nanako gave him, and he momentarily zones out into a hormonal daydream. Realizing he's about to expose himself figuratively, he snaps back to reality and runs away before she can press him further. Later that day, when he returns home, he finds Shino face down on the table and asks if she's okay. She perks up with a sleepy smile and excitedly tells him she had a dream where she ate a mountain of oysters. He smiles at her before asking why she came to this college, and she explains that she wasn't good at academics, so she chose this field to discover what she was good at. She recalls growing up in a rural area where she had to wait 30+ minutes just to catch a train, and hearing this, he gets a flash of inspiration and proposes they use this rural station setting to depict the life of a girl for the video. He gathers everyone and tells them this, and everyone gets excited with the idea except Roku, who simply nods, says he needs time to think, and walks back to his room. Just when they're beginning to wonder if they offended him, he returns, hands over a sheet of paper and tells them it's the plot he wrote based on Kyoya's suggestion. The entire team is stunned by how well it is written in just a few minutes, but before they can dive into the production, he pulls Kyoya aside, saying he wants to talk privately. He shows him another paper, something he wrote earlier that morning, and when Kyoya reads it, he is shocked to find it eerily similar to the plot he just suggested. He swears he didn't plagiarize, and Roku believes him, but still vents his frustration at feeling like someone stole his thoughts. He tries to understand the bizarre coincidence, and suddenly recalls reading a novella with a similar plot, clearly inspired by Roku's story, probably written by Roku himself in the future. Roku notices his prolonged silence and jokingly asks if there's something he's hiding, but quickly brushes it off, calling himself silly. Kyoya, however, just stands there, guilty, silent and sweating, but plays along and even offers to help him fine-tune the story. The team then gets to work, pouring all their energy into preparing the video. The next day they go out to a cafe to discuss on this, and Kyoya brings up an important issue. Although Roku's script is brilliant, it's exceeding the 3-minute time limit and suggests he trim the script. Roku, being Roku, refuses to change a single word, and instead tells the girls to talk faster to fit within time. Kyoya wonders what to do as they are risking getting disqualified by not sticking within time. He explains this to Roku, who gets annoyed and walks off, but before leaving, reluctantly agrees to make edits, although it's clear he's salty about it. As the group exits the cafe, a mysterious guy theatrically falls at Nanako's feet like it's a K-drama audition, and starts spouting nonsense about her beauty, followed by a suspiciously sad backstory. He then somehow cons them into visiting an abandoned store, and just as Kyoya is about to call the cops, 2 more guys jump out yelling that their salvation has arrived. Turns out, the mysterious guy is Takashi, the president of a failing club on campus with no members and no funding. He and the others admit to staging the entire melodrama just to pitch their story. Nanako and Shino agree to join their gloriously useless club, sending the trio into a frenzied celebration, and Takashi proudly hands them a flyer, his face lighting up like someone just funded his Netflix pilot. That evening, while working at the train station, Kyoya bumps into Kawase, who immediately interrogates him about their film setting. When he confirms it's based around the station, she responds that she won't lose to him. After this weird encounter, he meets with Kana again to submit the latest report, and to his surprise, she brings up the argument that occurred within their team. At first he denies it, but then admits the truth. She hands him a movie script, and explains how it bombed despite winning awards. The reason? The pacing was off, stretched too long by overambition. She tells him that a good script alone doesn't make a good film, and as the producer, it's his job to ensure everything runs smoothly. This epiphany hits Kyoya like a truck and he immediately dashes home, knocking on Roku's door like a madman. He tells Roku they need to focus on teamwork first and solve the time issue later. Everyone agrees and they pull together as a team again, but just as they take out the camera Roku borrowed, disaster strikes. It turns out to be a regular camera, not a video camera. Shino panics, saying it's too late to borrow another, and Kyoya sinks into despair, wondering if even a second chance at life is enough to escape the black hole of bad luck he's trapped in. The day of the assessment finally arrives, and the entire team sits anxiously wondering how their video is going to turn out, especially since Kyoya had to make last-minute edits, and they never actually had the time to review the final cut. Kana steps onto the stage and announces that the evaluation will now begin. With an encouraging but stern tone, she reminds them that this isn't just a test, but a vital part of their curriculum, and they should be prepared to receive feedback like functioning adults, not toddlers who were denied candy. From the back of the room, Kawase and boldly declares that she's not going to lose to him. Next, Kana calls up Kyoya's team and they get anxious since the previous film also revolved around a train station, which meant the audience would inevitably start comparing the two like toxic exes comparing who glowed up better. The video begins playing and the audience is shocked to see that it is actually a compilation of static images, not a moving footage. What the audience doesn't know is that when Roku messed up with the camera, Kyoya came up with this idea to get the video done before the deadline. He had previously worked on something similar using After Effects, and knew that if they couldn't record motion, they could still simulate it. He'd even reached out to Takashi for advice on stop-motion animation. They needed around 100 photos per shot to convincingly simulate motion, and the voice dialogues would be dubbed in later. Shino had been tasked with the image composition, tying everything together visually, and she excitedly agrees. They had worked tirelessly to capture every single frame with precision, assembling the entire thing into a 3-minute visual journey that showed the life of a girl from childhood to old age, all through stills. When the video ends, Kawase gets up clapping loudly and the others join in as well, cheering. Kyoya and his teammates stare at the screen, utterly stunned that the audience actually loved it. Soon they get the results. Kawase's team bags the first place, and Kyoya's team gets the third, which, considering the roller coaster they'd just survived, felt like winning an Oscar. Kyoya apologizes to the team, saying he could have done better with the editing, but Roku immediately jumps from his seat, declaring that Kyoya was amazing and incredibly talented. Nanako also appreciates him for saving the day, and tells that she needs to seriously work on her acting. Seeing them passionately argue with one another, Kana smiles and praises them, hinting that there will be more projects to come, and they leave the auditorium buzzing with excitement. Later that day, Kawase corners Kana and demands to know why Kyoya's team didn't get first place. Kana calmly replies that their project was clearly too creative, which usually means it was an accident. She then tells Kawase that for the end of the term assignment, she will work with Kyoya's team before teasing her, and she runs away in embarrassment. She glances at their childhood photo and they haven't changed much. Kawase was her younger sister. Meanwhile, Kyoya and Nanako are just finishing their shift at the convenience store. As they step outside, Nanako shyly tugs on his sleeve like an anime character about to confess her love and asks if he's free. She drags him to karaoke, where much to his shock she completely lets go of her shy persona and sings passionately. When she finishes, she quickly returns to her shy self and asks if he'd join her for karaoke again sometime. He nods with a small smile and suggests that she upload her singing videos online. She laughs nervously and brushes off the compliment, claiming she's not good enough. The next day, the team meets with Takashi and the rest of the Useless Club to celebrate a small miracle. Their funding actually increased. One of the newer members introduces herself as Hayama, stating her passion is pottery. That night, Shino joins Kyoya on the way home, walking beside him quietly. She eventually admits that her real talent is drawing, although she's kept it hidden. Kyoya, pretending to be surprised, but very much not, listens as she explains that while she loves drawing, she never felt talented enough to make a career out of it. That's why she chose filmmaking, thinking it might be a safer path. Kyoya gently places a hand on her shoulder and tells her not to doubt herself, as she owes it to herself to pursue her passion no matter where it leads. A few weeks later, Kawase joins Kyoya and the rest of the group on a beach trip, where they begin brainstorming for their next generation assignment, trying to soak up some inspiration along with the sun. On their way back, she casually leans over and asks him how he managed to keep the camera for 3 days, considering first-year students are only allowed to rent equipment for a single day. Kyoya awkwardly scratches the back of his head and confesses that he actually borrowed the camera from some seniors in exchange for helping them with their projects. She scolds him, warning that what they're doing is technically against the rules. Just then, they hear a voice agreeing with her. They turn around to see a small girl, and Kyoya asks her where she is from and if she is lost. The girl glares at him before telling that she is actually their senior and introduces herself as Tommy. The next day, as the students gather in the auditorium waiting for their films to be screened, Kawase tells Kyoya that something doesn't feel right. As their video finishes playing, another team's video begins, and it's noticeably high quality, dramatic, and emotionally gripping. The audience begins murmuring, many commenting that the second video was leagues better than theirs. Kyoya and his team slump in disappointment, fully expecting to be failed. But then, in a twist no one saw coming, Kana announces Kyoya's team as the first place winner. The audience get upset with the result and calls their teams acting pathetic compared to the other one. Later that evening, Nanako visits Kana privately, telling her that she disagrees with the ranking, that her team didn't deserve the top spot because the other team's acting was clearly superior. Kana, calm as ever, responds that acting alone doesn't make a film great, and reminds her that cinema is an integrated art form. The next day, Kyoya gathers the team at a cozy cafe, congratulating everyone for successfully finishing the assignment. They all have good food and drinks, while Nanako starts singing. When she is done, everyone is amazed by her performance and clap loudly. She becomes shy and tries to brush it off, but before she can escape, Kawase stands up, grabs the mic before stating that Nanako actually doesn't want to be an actress but a singer. Nanako looks at her, completely stunned, and demands how she knew. Kawase replies that while Nanako's acting was decent, it always felt somewhat empty, like a performance that was too clean, but when she sang, it was raw, genuine, and passionate. That's how she knew. Then Kawase goes further, accusing her of being afraid of failing at what she truly loved. She says Nanako only picked acting because people told her she was good at it, not because it was her dream. Nanako's eyes widen as she yells back, saying that she did love singing ever since she was a child, but people kept calling her tone deaf, and it crushed her spirit. Kawase doesn't hold back and calls her a coward for not even trying to improve. Hearing this, Nanako is so enraged she almost slaps her, but Kyoya jumps in just in time to stop her. She storms out of the cafe in tears, followed shortly by Kawase, and he is left wondering what's going to happen to their group. Later, when Kyoya tries to talk to Nanako alone, she refuses and walks away. He learns from the others that she's been ignoring everyone, isolating herself. Raku mutters that Kawase can be nosy sometimes, but Shino disagrees, saying that Kawase isn't trying to hurt her, she just really wants Nanako to follow her true path. Kyoya agrees and later meets Kawase, who looks more downcast than usual. She admits she may have been too harsh, but he reassures her that Nanako needed to hear those words, even if they stung. Over coffee, she confesses something unexpected, that deep down she's jealous of Nanako, jealous that she had such a clear talent from a young age and still ignored it. He tells her not to worry, and that he is sure Nanako won't give up on her passion. After class, the photography club members informs him about the school ceremony, and he goes to talk to Takashi regarding this, who tells him that it is a 3-day event with over 8,000 students participating. As he goes on and on about the event, Hiyama suddenly comes to knock him down, saying that he is using this event for his personal gain. He apologizes and agrees to shut his mouth while she explains to Kyoya that every year during the anniversary, the college will rent a classroom to hold an art exhibition, and when he asks about this year, she beats Takashi before saying that because of this loser, it won't happen this year. Apparently, he submitted an alternate proposal behind their backs to turn the exhibit room into a maid cafe. Hiyama proceeds to beat him senseless when he yells something about needing a pink-haired head maid. She demands to know where on earth he'll even find enough volunteers for the cafe, let alone someone with pink hair. That's when Kyoya remembers Tommy, the small girl with the pink hair. And just as he opens his mouth, she magically appears next to him like some fantasy anime character. They exchange small talk while Takashi drools over his pink hair fantasies. Tomi meanwhile informs them why she is here, to ask for Kyoya's help on a game project, and wants him to be the director. He thinks what to do as this is his second chance to make games and achieve his dream, but he still refuses. She respects his decision and hands him a flash drive with the game she has already built before leaving. Back home, Kyoya opens the game and listens to the title track, and suddenly, he's hit by nostalgia. Back in his old life, when he was working in the game industry, his company didn't have the budget for a sound mixer, so he had to learn sound engineering himself. He remembers the struggle, the learning, the late nights, and then it hits him. He rushes to Nanako's room, where she's still sulking in silence. She refuses to open the door, so he plays the audio of her singing, corrected using sound tools to fix the pitch issues. He softly tells her that she has immense potential, and that she shouldn't throw her dream away just because some people couldn't see it. Slowly the door opens, and she stands there, teary-eyed as she thanks him and says that she's ready to start taking singing seriously. He smiles and tells her that she can absolutely do it, and that he'll be there to help her all the way. In a few days, preparations for the school anniversary goes in full swing when Kyoya and Nanako decide to spend quality time together. As they walk, he thinks back to how she promised to focus on her singing. She's been working hard under the guidance of a music senior, learning everything from scratch and even improving her stamina with regular exercise. She nervously asks him if all this effort will amount to anything, wondering what really awaits her at the end of this path. He gently reassures her not to overthink things, especially when she's just started doing what she truly loves. She hesitates and asks why he's helping her so much, but he simply responds that after seeing her performance, he just wants her to succeed. This honesty touches her deeply, and she impulsively hugs him in gratitude, saying that no one has ever helped her this way before. But the moment quickly turns awkward as she blushes and pulls back, muttering that he shouldn't read too much into her sudden outburst of affection. Kyoya looks around at his friends, all working passionately toward their individual roles in the festival, and wonders if the reason he traveled back in time is to help these talented, determined people fulfill their dreams. Finally, the day of the school anniversary arrives, and the campus transforms into a vibrant carnival with bustling stalls, indie film screenings, art exhibitions, and music festivals. Hikawa hands Kyoya a ticket to a period film he acted in, and insists that he must come see it. Kyoya then visits the infamous maid club that Takashi proposed, only to find the girls dressed in costumes that look like they were stolen directly from his browser history, as he gawks at them like a depraved teenager. Tomi appears beside him and teases, asking if he's enjoying the free show. Embarrassed, he apologizes and asks why she's participating. She says they were low on volunteers, so she stepped in before Koid asking if she is good in the outfit. But before he could answer, Takashi jumps in and calls her a perfection. Soon, a crowd of mostly guys flocks to the cafe, clearly drawn by more than just the coffee. While the girls take orders and serve, Kyoya handles kitchen duties. Hayama surprisingly apologizes to him for making him do all the chores from provision to cooking, as they are low on staff. He tells her that it's okay, but before he could say more, he witnesses her beats the crap out of Takashi for trying to take compromising photos of the maids. Shino walks over and gently rubs flour off his cheeks, and he thanks her before going to check how the maid service is going. Everything is running smoothly and the customers keeps increasing. Because of the endless crowd, the group doesn't get time to enjoy the festival stalls, exhibits, or events. The first and second days fly by in a blur, and by the third day, the girls are completely exhausted. Roku asks Kyoya if working in a maid cafe is really that draining. Kyoya nods while barely keeping his eyes open. Nanako complains that it feels less like a festival and more like a part-time job from hell. Kyoya checks the laptop and informs everyone that they've met their sales goals, meaning they could potentially shut down early on the final day if the seniors approve. Nanako pleads with him to make it happen, and tries to recruit Roku to hang out with them. He declines, flashing a movie poster and saying he has to attend a film. She punches him in the gut, waking up Shino from her nap, and they all descend into a chaotic back and forth. The final day of the anniversary arrives. Kyoya spots Kawase outside the maid cafe and asks what she's doing there. She shows him the same poster Roku had, saying she came to check out the cafe after watching the movie. She then sadly tells that she also needs to Nanako for being harsh the other day, but he tells her not to worry as Nanako has started practicing singing again. Later, Kyoya and Shino go to watch the movie as well, and wonder when Hikawa will appear. But to their surprise, his part is just a speaking tree. Nothing more, totally worthless for all the boasting he did. After the movie, the two have good food, roam around, watch horror movies, and then visit an art exhibition. There, Shino stares at a painting for long, so Kyoya joins her. The painting is beautiful, and he checks the artist, Kazuo, which sounds oddly familiar. Suddenly, his vision goes blurry and he collapses on the ground, causing Shino to rush to his side in concern. Meanwhile, Nanako is in the cafe waiting for him, but instead Raku shows up asking what's happening. She simply tells he missed on cute girls wearing maid's costume, to which he replies that she is more than enough. Although she laughs to it, she is sad that Kyoya is not there with her, but little did she know that he is laying unconscious in the art gallery. Luckily, Kyoya wakes up in some time and sees Shino hovered over him. He gets up immediately after he realizes that he was on her lap. She tells him that he has overworked himself and asks him to lie down the same way. He obediently falls back and lies on her lap as she pats his head. She tells that to her, he is a very capable person who is reliable, mature, and talented, who constantly encouraged her. She then bends down and proceeds to slowly kiss him, but suddenly he gets a phone call, ruining the moment. He hears the news that the special guest singer for the concert has bailed and rushes to meet with the others. One of the guys informs this is because of double booking, and turns out the celebrity had committed before he became famous and is now ghosting them. Tomi looks at Nanako and suggests she take the stage. Kyoya agrees and encourages her, but she panics, saying she's not ready, and slaps his hand away before running off. Roku agrees to stall the crowd with improv comedy and magic tricks, while Kyoya runs after her. He finds her by the lake and slowly approaches her. She tells him she's terrified she won't be good enough, and he gently reassures her and pulls out his laptop, showing her a video of her performance that they had uploaded online, which has already gone viral. Back at the venue, Roku and the others perform ridiculous skits and desperate dances to buy time. Just as they're about to run out of tricks, Kyoya and Nanako return. With renewed courage, Nanako takes the stage and, after a shaky start, delivers a stellar performance. The crowd falls silent in awe, before breaking into cheers. After the performance, she rushes to meet Kyoya and is horrified to witness Shino kiss him passionately. As if that wasn't enough, Kyoya wakes up the next day to find Shino laying on top of him, and she shamelessly gets up, acting like everything is normal. She then pouts, demanding he repeat what happened yesterday. And just as he's about to start, Nanako opens the door to call them for breakfast, only for the poor girl to see this heartbreaking scene once again. At breakfast, Kyoya asks Roku if he's been skipping classes lately. Roku confirms, explaining that work's been hectic, but Nanako isn't buying it and immediately calls him out for being lazy. The two start bickering, but Nanako's mood darkens further when she sees Shino giggling beside Kyoya. Roku promises to start attending classes next week, but several days pass and he remains MIA. One day, Kyoya sees Shino dragging Roku by the arm. insisting he stay indoors and rest. She explains that he's been vomiting for days. Before Roku can respond, he collapses on the floor. They rush him to the hospital, where the doctor advises bed rest. Kyoya scolds him for pushing his limits, but Roku doesn't listen and proceeds to head to work. When he goes after him and questions why he's so hell-bent on burning out, Roku finally snaps, telling him to mind his own business. When he doesn't leave him alone, Roku gives up and confesses he pays his tuition by himself and doesn't take money from his family due to a strained relationship. With a defeated tone, he admits he can't earn enough anymore and can't work harder than he already does. Kyoya, however, assures him not to give up and promises to figure something out. The next day, he calls a team meeting and pitches a new plan. They'll develop a visual novel-style PC game, with Roku writing the script, Shino doing character sketches, Nanako composing the BGM, and Kyoya himself as the director. Later that day, Kyoya visits Tomi to ask for funding. He explains their project and the purpose behind it, and she warns that making money through indie games is tough without an existing fanbase. So he asks to release the game under her club's popular name for visibility, and she agrees. Back with the group, he tells that they will make video game with a school setting that has romance with PG-18+ scenes. Hearing this, Roku drags him out of the room to talk privately and admits that he lacks experience in that area. Kyoya tries to comfort him, saying even famous scriptwriters have faked it till they made it. When the two go back into the room, the girls tell that they have never played this kind of games before. So Kyoya hands them his laptop, asking them to copy the installed game and gain experience. A few minutes later, Nanako storms out, tears in her eyes, beating him with a pillow while screaming that he ruined her innocence as if she didn't know what she was getting into. However, Shino comes out dazed and calls the experience interesting. Nanako calls him a pervert before running to her room and banging the door shut. As if this wasn't a nuisance, he sees Roku sulking in the corner because of his lack of experience, and Kyoya decides to do some tutoring. Later that day, he meets a guy called Yama, an artist he knows from Future, and asks for his help in drawing backgrounds for the game. Yama agrees, and he goes to meet up with Tomi next to get the necessary equipments. The next day, Kyoya visits Kana, only to find that she already knows about his game plan. Tomi then suddenly jumps from under the sofa, and it's obvious she only said. They reveal to him that they used to make games together, but not anymore. Now, she just helps students with similar passions. Kana wishes Kyoya luck, but reminds him not to slack on his studies. That night, he gives Roku sample videos to study for gaining the required experience. But he comes out shortly saying he understood nothing. Nanako complains that composing BGM is harder than expected, and Shino says drawing game illustrations is equally difficult. In class the next day, Kawase notices their zombie-like state and almost ruining their pottery by falling asleep on it. So she confronts Kyoya about this, who admits it's because they had no sleep last night. He explains their situation, and she expresses her sympathy before offering her help. That night, Roku finishes the script and asks Kyoya to review it. Kyoya suggests trimming the lengthy descriptions and adding more natural dialogue. The following morning, Shino casually mentions seeing an expensive car parked outside. From it, two men in black coats and a girl in a fur coat had stepped out. Her description immediately triggers Roku, who quickly packs a bag and says he's going to vanish for a day. But before he can disappear, the mysterious girl and her bodyguard appear at their doorstep. The girl immediately jumps onto Roku and hugs him as he tries to get away from her. However, once she notices everyone watching, she composes herself and introduces herself as Sayuri, Roku's fiancée, leaving the group in shock. The group invites Sayuri to a hot pot night, and she gladly accepts, much to Roku's visible disappointment. He grumbles that she's bribing his friends with food, attempting to wriggle away from her grip, but she forcefully feeds him a dumpling like he's an overgrown toddler. Kyoya watches this weird domestic scene and wonders what their actual relationship is. Shino playfully does the same to Kyoya, which sets off Nanako's jealousy alarms. Not one to be outdone, she joins in feeding him too. Kyoya, trapped between the affections of two girls and a mouthful of food, contemplates his life choices. Later, on the football field, Roku explains to him that he does like Sayuri, but only in a platonic way, and that he ran away from home because he didn't have the guts to reject her directly and hurt her feelings. About a week goes by, and Sayuri becomes a regular visitor, dropping by with enough food to start a small restaurant. Despite the chaos, the group powers through with game development. One evening, Roku hands Kyoya the rewritten script, who reviews it and genuinely calls it impressive. He then checks in on Nanako, who complains that composing music is harder than expected. After listening to what she's made so far, he encourages her and assures her that it's already good. They'll just polish it up using software. She's so relieved she hugs him and stays like that longer than expected, before pulling away, blushing. That evening, Kyoya and Shino review background art from Yama, which is turning out great. He then sees Shino's character sketches and is impressed that she's doing so well even outside her usual style. She then shows him a rather steamy scene from the reference game, and innocently asks him what the two characters are doing. He gets embarrassed and simply tells that it is PG-18+. But this explanation is not enough for her, and she questions him further. When he doesn't answer, she corners him and insists on learning how to draw those scenes properly with live reference and hands-on experience, making him fear for his sanity. The next day, he hands the demo to Kawase, and when she asks how they managed to put all this together, he modestly says it was all for the wider audience's taste. She appreciates him for getting Roku to step out of his comfort zone and tells that he has a special talent for getting others to do things. Soon New Year 2007 arrives, and the group gathers to pray. Shino asks Kyoya what he wished for, and he tells her, quite seriously, that he wished for a smooth development process and great sales. The others echo the same before diving back into work. They review the game's current build and are surprised. It's finally starting to feel like a real game. The release date is locked and the hype is real. Later, when Koya goes to ask Roku something, he is greeted with the sight of Sayori cuddling him while he works. He learns the hard way that this is what happens when you barge into someone else's room without knocking, and it keeps getting worse as she goes after Roku like a dog with a bone. Instead of leaving those two alone, Koya shamelessly interrupts them and then leaves the room to gossip with the girls. They all express sympathy for Sayori constantly getting rejected and wonder what to do. Kyoya, suddenly aware of his surroundings, asks the girls why they are sitting so close to him, but they dismiss him, saying it's just his imagination. At work, Nanako suddenly asks what he was doing in Shino's room the other day, and Kyoya, like the idiot that he is, casually replies that he was just taking compromising pictures for Shino's art reference. Hearing this, she storms off in frustration, leaving him wondering how to handle both her and Shino's growing feelings. Out of options, he seeks out Kawase for advice. She yells at him first, then coolly asks which girl he likes. When he says he doesn't like either that way, she calls him an idiot and tells him to either reject them or avoid them unless he wants to be branded a two-timer. She then advises him to make a decision after the game is done. Later that night, he and Riku go over the script while Sayuri watches, bored out of her mind. Eventually, she jumps on Roku and starts playing with his hair. She casually mentions that his parents are worried, but Roku snaps, saying there's no way his father would ever say that. Hurt, Sayuri quietly leaves. Roku apologizes to Kyoya, both for the script and for the Sayuri drama, but Kyoya tells him not to stress and asks that he rest, since he's clearly not in the mood to work. A few days later, Kyoya runs into Sayuri again. Her car pulls up, and her terrifyingly large bodyguard stares him down like a mafia enforcer. She invites Kyoya for a private talk, and tells him she's planning to go home, finally accepting that Roku won't come with her. Then, out of nowhere, she drops a bomb and asks Kyoya if he and Roku are more than friends. Kyoya nearly chokes, but calmly denies it. Satisfied, she asks if he can promise Roku a good future with this path. Kyoya, without missing a beat, tells her that although it's uncertain, this is Roku's choice, and that they're all doing this game together for his sake. She seems content with his reply and asks him to take care of Roku before leaving. Several days pass, and with only a month left before the game's official release, Kyoya gathers everyone and tells them the grind is about to get real. The pressure is going to pile up like unwashed dishes in a bachelor's sink, but they need to push through regardless. Kyoya heads to his room and checks the current progress. They still need at least 3 original BGMs. The artwork remains barely 40% complete, and the engine occasionally crashes like a toddler learning to walk. Later, he hands Nanako a reference audio track and asks her to replicate the atmosphere and emotional beat of the piece for their next BGM. Then he moves on to Shino, asking her to change the composition of her drawing so it better suits her style and speed up the process. However, things don't go quite as smoothly with Roku, who isn't thrilled with the suggestion Kyoya offers, and tells him that it's vastly different from the original draft he created, so it makes no sense for Kyoya to even ask for a rewrite if he's going to override everything anyway. Kyoya calmly explains that in real-world production, the director typically holds the reins when it comes to script execution, and while writers build the foundation, it's often the director who reshapes it based on production constraints. He also tells Roku that this is the best way for them to complete the script on time, and Roku finally agrees. By the end of the week, the script is wrapped up, and the next day Kyoya informs Tommy that it's time to start the dubbing process. They visit a local sound recording studio along with Nanako to record voiceovers and background tracks. Everyone is quite happy with the progress, and Kyoya goes to inform Kawase regarding the same. They learn how to use After Effects from Takashi for editing their video game, and in no time Kawase becomes an expert on it. Takashi whispers in Kyoya's ears that she is a mad genius, and he agrees. Just then he gets a call from Shino and he goes to meet her. She got a great idea for a scene that would require her to add one more shot. He wonders that although he really likes her idea, should he accept that, as they are already behind the schedule and accepting this idea will only delay the progress further. So with a heavy heart he declines, but not without genuinely praising her creativity. She nods quietly and returns to work, clearly disappointed but understanding. As the deadline looms, things take a chaotic turn. Nanako lets out a scream, pointing at the screen showing a faceless in-game character. Kyoya calls it a rendering bug, and immediately phones Tomi, who starts working on the glitch. He checks in with Kawase and Shino, and is horrified to discover even more major bugs hiding in the game, like cockroaches during a kitchen inspection. As soon as the file is submitted, everyone collapses in exhaustion like soldiers after battle, except Kyoya, who somehow remains awake, running on sheer willpower. The next morning, they receive the final build of the game, and excitement buzzes through the room as they play it. The development phase may be done, but now begins the next terrifying part. Marketing and selling. Kyoya and Tomi begin promotion immediately, prepping for the launch event at a local indie game convention. The big day finally arrives, and to their surprise and delight, the booth is packed. They even manage to hit their expected sales within the week. Kyoya thanks everyone for their hard work, and they cheer loudly, appreciating him for making this possible. He then distributes the profit to everyone, and they are shocked that they actually managed to make a good amount of money. When he gives Roku his share, he tells that Roku can now pay tuition fees without a problem, as this whole project began because of him. However, Roku pulls him outside to discuss alone and tells that he is going to quit college, asking him to distribute his share to everyone. Kyoya, stunned and furious, asks how he can give up after everything the team did for him. Roku, eyes downcast, says that although he's passionate about writing, he doesn't see a future in it, not after experiencing how unstable it can be firsthand. Before leaving, he quietly reveals that he even picked a pen name for himself, one inspired by his hometown for the surname and, most heartbreakingly, Kyoya's name as the first name. Kyoya can't believe what he just heard and starts to cry. But Tommy comes up to him and asks if everything is alright. He thinks back to all that happened and wonders why he failed once again despite doing his best to form the Platinum Era by going back in time. He realizes with shock that they were already famous and popular in the future without having him, and all he did was meddle with their lives because of his wishful thinking, which changed Roku's future completely. Suddenly, everything fades to black and he wakes up to a little girl next to him calling him Dad. He checks the time and realizes in horror that he's back in the future. 10 years have passed, and somehow, against all odds, he's married to Shino, and that little girl is their daughter Maki. As they eat breakfast together, Kyoya reflects on how he messed up the Platinum Era's life by interfering with their life and making them too dependent on him and blocking their creativity, all in the name of helping them. He goes to his room and finds out that they are living in a different place near Tokyo, and that he is working for a video game company called Attraction Point after graduating. He checks his call history and notices that the last call he made was to Kawase, a month ago. Curious, or perhaps desperate to piece together what his life has become, he calls her, but before he can even speak, she picks up and in a rush mentions something about the plan not going well and asks him to meet her at the office. This confirms the shocking reality. They work in the same place and he doesn't even know the damn plan. The next morning, he wakes up half expecting to find himself back in his college dorm. But of course, he's still very much in the future. Shino packs lunch for him as he leaves to office, and his Maki insists on walking him to the door. At the office, he struggles to locate his desk until he spots a framed photo of his family. A candid moment of happiness he doesn't even remember living through. Before he can sit down, a junior colleague approaches him and says the producer wants to see him. He follows her through the hallway and is taken aback when the producer turns out to be Kawase. Still sharp, still composed, but no longer the commanding director she once was. She asks for his help on a project, her voice tired. That evening, over dinner with Shino and Maki, Kyoya watches them laugh and talk, and for the first time wonders if this, the simple domesticity, is what happiness was supposed to feel like. He casually mentions to Shino that he met a renowned illustrator at work, and asks if she was applying to the upcoming artist showcase. She looks up, puzzled, and says she gave up drawing years ago. He gets up in shock and asks why, but she simply tells that she doesn't have anything more that she wants to draw. He recalls that the other artist also said the same thing. It's then he painfully realizes that he didn't help them but messed up their lives. The next day, he gets scolded at work for failing to retrieve a piece from the illustrator. Another sign that he's not even good at the future he's living in. Kawase, now seemingly lower ranked than she was in their past lives, apologizes for her boss's behavior and they head out for lunch. As she eats, she compliments Shino for waking up early to prepare healthy meals for him. He realizes how much she gave up to become his wife, and Kawase too, who was once a powerhouse director, is now grinding at a mid-tier company at lower rank. It's like everyone's life became for the worse after having him in their life, and he goes to check Nanako's profile online. That evening, he pulls up Nanako's profile and is crushed to find that not only is her follower count far lower than in the original timeline, but her most recent video is an announcement that she's quitting music. Next, he checks on Roku, and just as he feared, Roku gave up writing long ago. One by one, their futures had collapsed like a house of cards. Although he had the best intentions for them, but all he had done was dim their light. He took away their creativity, and essentially their future, with only him having a happy ending now. That night, he comes to home fully drunk, and Maki complains that he stinks like anything. He goes to Shino crying like a kid and apologizes for ruining her life. They put Maki to sleep and sit down to discuss. She asks if something is bothering him about her not drawing anymore, and says that she thought he had made peace with it years ago. When he continues to ask her about it, she confesses that during all the time when they were working on more game development after Roku quit, she realized she was drawing something that she didn't like just for the sake of progress and deadlines. He recalls that day when he forced her to change her drawing style just so they can complete on time, and how he rejected her idea, which was so good, just because they had to meet the deadline. She tells him that slowly she stopped liking to draw, but still didn't say much to him because she knew he was doing his best. He couldn't help but start crying again, and she comforts him by holding him like a child. The next day, as they have breakfast, Koyoa thinks to himself that at least for the sake of Shino, he must carry forward this life properly, without repeating the same mistakes, without trying to fix people like they were some broken NPCs in a poorly coded game. It had been nearly a month since he woke up in this future, and although it still felt strange at times, he had gradually become more comfortable with the life he was now living. It was the weekend, and little Maki bounced around the living room with all the energy of a sugar-charged bunny, begging him to come play with her. Too exhausted to get up, Koyoa mumbles an excuse, and in frustration she throws away her teddy in anger. Shino makes her apologize to the teddy and tells that be it a puppet or human, everything is precious and holds a value. Seeing this, Koyoa can't help but smile at how mature Shino has become, and wonders what's going to happen in the future as he sees them go out for a walk. The next day at work, things start going downhill fast. One of the artists working on the current game project is stuck in a massive creative block and hasn't produced a single drawing in weeks. Concerned, Koyoa brings one of his co-workers along to visit the artist, Minori, in person. To their surprise, when she opens the door, she's wearing a flamboyant cosplay outfit straight out of a magical girl anime. Seeing it's them and not the courier as she expected, Minori freezes in pure embarrassment before awkwardly inviting them in. He asks her what happened, and she admits that although his last visit motivated her, she is still unable to draw. Later, back at the office, the boss publicly scolds Kawase for failing to deliver Minori's artwork. To lift her spirits, Koyoa takes her out for lunch again. Over bentos and lukewarm miso soup, she opens up about how her contract forces her to use only company-sanctioned software, restricting her ability to outsource tasks and making it impossible to meet creative demands under such rigid timelines. Feeling this is unfair, he approaches the boss and requests a release date extension to improve quality and reduce bugs, but the boss, in full corporate gremlin mode, shoots it down cold and asks him to mind his own business. He goes home and realizes that's all he should have done in the first place. In few days, the game goes live despite having so many bugs and with the missing artwork from Minori. Despite the engineers working overtime, the errors multiply faster than they can squash them, and the project quickly turns into a crash course on what not to do in game development. At home, Maki proudly shows off a crayon drawing of a cute little princess, beaming as she asks Shino to add something to it. But Shino declines, quietly murmuring that she's unable to draw anymore. Koyoa sits beside Maki and offers to add something himself, awkwardly doodling, when he gets a call from the work regarding a crisis and rushes to meet his assistant. When he arrives, he finds the boss once again berating Kawase in front of everyone. She's trying her best to explain that the root of the issue isn't the speed of production, but the complete lack of structural integrity in how things are being handled. But the boss isn't having it and tells that he wants the job done, that they don't have to fix anything, just keep producing more games in a tighter schedule. Koyoa clenches his fists, ready to step in and tell this loser off, but pauses. He remembers Roku's words and realizes that if he fight others' battles for them, they'll never learn to fight for themselves. Later, as he is working, a notification pops up. He opens it to see that it's a new video upload from Nanako. In the video, she talks about her previous announcement, the one where she said she'd be quitting singing. But then she starts talking about college, and about a boy who encouraged her to sing in the first place. Koyoa immediately knew she was talking about him. As the video continues, she tells that although he encouraged her and thanks to him, she started her career in singing, but it's also his fault, because that she doesn't feel like singing anymore. Because of him constantly helping her, she stopped trying and relied too much on him, and after he left, she didn't want to sing anymore. She, however, tells that she can't put all the blame on him and let all the efforts go in vain, so she decided she is going to sing again. Koyoa sits there stunned, glad that despite all his mistake, she didn't give up on her singing in the end. At least for her, the mistakes he made became a blessing later. After this, he decides that maybe it's not always a bad thing to interfere, and goes to interrupt the boss from scolding Kawase. Koyoa walks straight into the boss's office and calmly asks him to stop yelling at Kawase, assuring him that he's going to find a solution. The boss seems happy that he is willing to take over her and grants him full control of the team as long as he follows his rule. Koyoa then coolly proposed that they have to change the game engine first, and the boss gets furious that they can fix the bugs instead of changing whole game engine. But he doesn't budge and explains that the bugs and errors are symptoms of a deeper issue. The game engine is trash, and patching over it is like putting a band-aid on a sinking ship. The boss argues they don't have time for such drastic measures, but he casually calls over his junior and asks him to bring in a pen drive. Within minutes, they replace the engine, and miraculously, the game runs smoothly. When the boss demands to know how the hell this was possible, he reveals that they used an engine from another premium company. The boss immediately throws a fit over the cost, until Koyoa slides over a file like he's presenting secret government intel, and explains that he managed the budget by reassigning team expenses and trimming unnecessary costs. Now that things are stable, he assigns new tasks. Someone is put in charge of managing social media accounts, another gets the servers back online, and so on. He gives everyone ample time to do their jobs right. Naturally, the boss flips out again, screaming about deadlines and insisting they can't afford another failure. The boss, somehow realizing yelling doesn't work on him, finally storms off but says nothing more. Later that day, he visits Minori and brings her a handful of artwork by an artist she once admired, hoping it'll reignite the spark she's lost. She's thrilled and carefully flips through the drawings, eyes wide. She confesses that she nearly gave up on art back in high school, not because people didn't appreciate it, but because they kept saying her drawings were too technical and lacked emotional appeal. That kind of criticism stuck with her. But what saved her then was an artist whose game illustrations were filled with warmth and charm. And it turns out that artist was none other than Shino. The drawings he brought? Yeah, they were Shino's from a few years ago. Minori tells him to give her a week and that she is going to complete the drawings by then, as he had inspired her once again. The next morning at work, his assistant rushes up and tells him that Kawase is not here, that she is leaving to her hometown. Kawase gets a cab and rushes to the airport feeling guilty once again, and blames himself for taking her spotlight as the project manager and thus making her give up. He decided to do her job for her, and now she is leaving because of that. He scolds himself for doing the same mistake as he did with Roku and runs to the airport to stop her from leaving. He finally finds her on time and sit down to talk with her. He tells her that she can't resign and that it's his mistake for taking over her role and embarrassing her in front of her juniors. But she shuts him up and tells him not to be silly, that she is not resigning, and she had canceled the flight already. She asks why he is so worried about her, and he tells that it is because he is afraid that she too will give up on her passion like the others because of his fault. He sadly tells that although he might look selfless to others, but he is actually quite selfish and that he assumes that everyone wants his help and thus messing with their life. Hearing him talk nonsense, she gets furious and starts beating the crap out of him with her handbag. She asks him that why he doesn't ask for anyone's help, then instead of carrying all the burden on himself. With tears in her eyes, she asks if they are so unreliable to him. She scolds him that he is not responsible for everyone's future, and that he didn't force anyone, then why should he take all the blame? Once she calms down, they sit and have coffee quietly, embarrassed of causing a scene at the airport. She then decides to take the flight after all, not because he's going to resign, because she wants to relax for a couple of days. After she leaves, he wishes that he can go back in time now and is on cue. Tommy appears out of nowhere and agrees. Tomi looks at him for a moment and gently asks if he really wants to go back in time. Kyoya doesn't say anything at first, just nods, the weight of his decision hanging in the silence. She raises her brow and asks if he's truly thought it through, reminding him that in this life he has a wife and a daughter. She asks if he's really ready to let go of the happiness he's found here to return to a time when life was harder, responsibilities were heavier, and no one knew what lay ahead. But Kyoya simply smiles and says he's not going back to chase happiness or flirt around or play Mr. Genius. He wants to return because he wants to be with everyone again, to live through the sadness with them, not just the joy but all of it. She hands him a handkerchief to wipe his tears and begins preparing the spell, or whatever cosmic time-bending method she uses. But he stops her. He wants to see Shino and say goodbye first. Back home, little Maki runs up to him, full of energy and bouncing like a ping-pong ball. She excitedly announces that Shino has started drawing again before showing the drawing. As he looks at it, he is mesmerized by how raw and beautiful the drawing is. Just then, Shino joins them to welcome him back. He asks her what made her draw again, and she tells it's because she played the game he made with Kawase, and seeing Minori's artwork, she wanted to draw as well. He pulls both Shino and Maki into a tight hug, holding them close like they're the most fragile and precious things in the world, and for him they are. That night, as he tucks them into bed, Shino softly says that she's glad she picked up her pencil again, admitting that she once took her passion for granted. She confesses that now she's ready to draw a lot more. He smiles and tells her to go all in, assuring her that she'll always have his support. The next day, he watches the two of them from the doorway, his heart full and aching at the same time. After soaking in the sight, he bids them a silent farewell and steps out. Tommy waits for him outside like some time-traveling Uber driver and asks if he's finally ready. He nods, and she gives him one piece of advice: not sell himself short, and that he can't help everyone. He agrees that he won't do that again, and this time he will do everything properly. She then lifts her hand up, and with a flash of light, he transports him back in time. He wakes up suddenly, and above him Nanako hovers, looking concerned. Before he can fully sit up, Shino rushes in, equally worried. They both ask if he's okay. He sits up slowly, nodding. The girls tell him that Roku has quit college, and Shino asks in confusion why he'd do that. He doesn't answer, and instead tells that he needs to go out. He knows now he's no hero, no savior, and he can't fix everyone, but he can make things right. The next day at college, Hikawa sneaks up and scares him from behind, and Kyoya jumps, then laughs. They chat like old times, and afterward he heads out to meet Takashi, spending some time messing around with the photography club before deciding to meet Kana. He casually asks if she knew why Roku left, and she explains that from what she heard it was due to family problems. She then shakes her head, saying it's a shame because they actually made enough money for him to cover his tuition. He agrees out loud, but silently, he tells himself that he believes in Roku. If writing really is Roku's path, then somehow, somewhere they'll cross again. The important thing is that this time, he won't force anything. One day in class, Nanako brings up the game company that reached out to her, asking her to compose and sing the theme song. She seems hesitant, nervous even, and Kyoya encourages her to take the leap. She tells that she is scared, and he reminds her it's the same as when they uploaded her song online. She disagrees and tells it's not the same as she had him to help back then. She shyly asks if she can help her again, but he encourages her to try doing by herself and tells that he believes in her. But with Shino, things are different. One morning over breakfast, she admits she doesn't feel like drawing anymore. Kyoya pauses, troubled, and his mind flashes back to the future Shino, to the pain, the passion, the silent sacrifices she made. He wants to inspire her but doesn't know how. That afternoon, as he walks through campus lost in thought, he accidentally bumps into a girl rushing past. She stumbles, apologizes, and begins gathering her scattered things. He notices a notebook on the ground filled with beautifully detailed sketches and a copy of the game he and his friends built together. He picks them up, stunned, and the girl snatches them back from him protectively. As she turns, he catches her student ID. It's Minori, the same Minori he knew from the future, although she looks quite different, especially her hair, now shorter and in black. As she rushes off, flustered, Kyoya stands there, laughing softly, and recalls Kawase's words that no effort in this world will go in vain, and maybe, just maybe, she was right. Comment down below, Ultra Nerd, if you watched till the end. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.